Just let me dump it.
Can't do it.
Is this a joke?
That's what I like to know about it.
All right, it's really recording. Yo, we just recorded a whole intro, and
it was so long and so bad.
Idiot Luke didn't hit record, which is probably for the better.
It's probably for the best. So welcome to the
Joe and I
Seinfeld
just spent a night drinking a lot of beer and editing together the Seinfeld episode. Joe, let's be honest. 2 beers we had tonight were 10% or over.
They were heavy and they were good.
One was a Veil IPA,
and the other was
called oh shit, dude! This thing's filled with beer.
Did we not drink the rest?
Did you not have your half?
No, I had my half.
Oh, I didn't have the full amount of my half.
Okay, so
I'm gonna pour a little more for myself, but you got to finish it because I'm gonna drive later.
This. Yeah.
Okay. Or am I?
Like, share, and subscribe.
So, anyways,
Are you recording?
Yeah, this is our episode on Seinfeld.
Yes.
And
if you're a fan of the show, you're gonna love this episode. It's stellar. It's the best.
If you're not a fan, I mean, you might still like it, but it's just, there's a way that Seinfeld fans talk to each other. Joe and I always talk about this, where it's like one person makes a Seinfeld reference and the other person doesn't just laugh or say, haha, you made a Seinfeld reference. They have to come back with an equally applicable, Seinfeld reference. Yeah. Like, it's almost like a little, verbal sword fight, and it's like a fun game of, ping pong almost.
So if you don't know what Seinfeld is, also, which some people who accidentally clicked on this might not know, it's a great show from the 1990s, and there's a lot of fantastic social commentary, so I think some of what we analyzed you'll really enjoy regardless, whether or not you're a hardcore fan.
It comes down to characters, right? You have this type character, that one type character.
It's really good writing is what it comes down to.
It's good writing. We think it's a good show. We think it's worthy of laughing at on the surface for many reasons, but also enjoying at a deep level. So
so give a listen, and I think you'll have a good time.
All right.
Regardless.
Believe it or not, this is a Seincast. Please leave a listen at the beep. We got real drunk and we added some thunk, then got more drunk. Come step in the tank, grab a beer. Oh, you better believe it, buddy. Boom. It's gone.
What's the deal with all these immigrants?
You could have said anything there, Johnny. You could have said, what's the deal with bagels? But you went with immigrants. Welcome to Thunk Tank Podcast. Joe, can you just give a disclaimer? Or we'll do that in the intro? Give a second disclaimer just in case they don't take it seriously.
I got it, Joe. I can do
it. All right, give us our disclaimer, Johnny.
All right, so this is going to be the episode about nothing.
Yes.
If you know what that means, if you get that reference, then you're in. If you still don't know what we're talking about, you really will be a show about nothing for you because you're not going to get any of the jokes or references or characterizations
go
that we're going to do.
In that case.
So go binge watch Seinfeld.
Well, not even just one binge watching. You have to watch Seinfeld as a culture for years and years, and then it embeds in your DNA, and then finally every line out of your mouth can be a quote.
So you have to live there, dude.
You have to live, basically, as Luke's saying, for years what was the last great American sitcom.
In order to understand it at all. Yes, I agree.
At all.
I totally agree.
So let's just say what beer we're drinking.
Well, we have an extra member here today. We should probably
maybe we introduce the humans and then
don't worry about that. Just go ahead and introduce your beer if you need to.
He's not slighted or anything. No. The beer got top billing over him.
I don't know.
This is all live.
Are we live streaming?
So let's just say what beer we're drinking, and then my idea was let's just each go around for a quick minute and say, I agree with what you said, Johnny. It's probably the best sitcom, I can think of, and there's a lot of reasons for it. So I'll give a quick reason why.
That works.
Anyways, we're drinking a Seinfeld themed beer. Did you say it already?
Yes, it's a Barrage Brewing Company, the Jerk Store called. And it's a double dry hop, double IPA. Really good.
And if you, again, this is we're giving layer after layer of test. If you don't understand why that's funny, like the Jerk Store called, turn it off. You're not going to get this episode. We
So elitist.
Not in an elitist way, in like I don't want to piss people off.
An exclusionary way, though, for sure.
Yeah.
We want to exclude.
Take it in whatever way you want.
These
I'm not
people.
telling you to turn it off. I'm just suggesting strongly.
You're getting very aggressive. Yes,
He's just suggesting that you go fuck yourself.
Right,
If
very
you
strong.
don't know what we're talking.
Yeah.
My girlfriend has been watching a lot of Curb and Seinfeld this summer, and finally things are starting to click at a different level. Like she just understands half more of what I say.
Like,
Wow, that's
as
great
you
sentence.
speaking English, you mean?
That was a great sentence, Luke.
I
You
ate
should
very
be
little food
broadcasting.
today, and we just picked up some treehouse. We're up in Massachusetts, so
Yeah, we're at a satellite Massachusetts
I'm going to let my
studio.
portobello chicken spinach wrap settle in here. And Johnny, what are you
no,
drinking?
we've discussed this. You guys can't eat before the podcast because
Luke just
your
gets
brains
weird.
are. Luke is his belly's full. He loses his predator instincts. He doesn't need to survive.
He's
You
already
lose your
hunted
ed.
for the day.
You got to go into the cast hungry. Like, I have not eaten all day. I'm going to get very drunk very quickly. But I am ready for this cast. I'm hungry. I'm hungry to take on some shit. I'm drinking
What do you think the topic
Dortmunder
is? Why
lager.
are you so hungry?
I just didn't have time to eat. I'm getting grumpy, so I tend to take it out on the cast. But this is a Dortmunder lager, which is a German-style export lager, so a little higher alcohol than most German beers. But it's still a lovely, light, crisp lager because I want one.
It's got a great color to it.
From Casita Cerveceria, one of my favorite gypsy breweries. They're brewing it out of Duck Rabbit in North Carolina right
Nice.
now. Check
Duck
them out.
Rabbit's got a cool logo too.
Is it a duck? Is it a rabbit?
Oh, we
What's
still
the
haven't
deal?
introduced Eric.
We went through this and failed.
Let's introduce,
my brother is, let's say, located somewhere within an hour of Treehouse, and so we made a combined Treehouse brother visit. I would say in terms of expert on Seinfeld, he has me beat. Not necessarily 10 years ago, but now. Certainly, because I don't have cable and I
you've
don't
ceded
watch
the
it as
crown.
much. But anyways, welcome, Eric.
Do you guys have like a
Yeah.
belt? in
Thank
the
you guys
family
for
trade back?
thanks for coming to Massachusetts, as we're calling it the Pioneer Valley Satellite Studio.
Bam.
Yeah.
So good to have you
We're
guys
like
here.
we're like
Like it or leave
herpes
it.
spreading around. It like we just spread to different areas of the country and make our studios
There's
there.
got to be a better way to
that's
say
what,
that.
That's what
though.
we're like, Luke.
I think of it more as the thunk tank is just kind of leaking as it travels. Pretty
Yeah,
harshly
the herpes things are oozing out all over the country.
Actually,
Sure,
Western
it's
Mass
leaking
in,
herpes all over this.
Western Mass in general is kind of like that, so kind of fit right in here.
So we fit the mold. I like it. I feel comfortable.
Like a mold. Okay, that's what I should have said.
Yeah, as opposed to whatever that was.
Yeah. So, just so you know, in the past 30 seconds, there were like 2 Seinfeld lines dropped. Like, this is what
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just embedded in the way we talk. Like
Deep in the
every
shag.
time
Deep structures of the brain, yeah.
deep in the shag is a reference, right? Joe said, "Yeah, that's what you did. That's a reference." Like, it's so weird that until we become mindful of these references, like, they're just happening all the time.
Yeah.
They could be content related, like, oh, we're at a Chinese restaurant. Remember that episode? Or they might be just like I said, deep, right? And you just
You said embedded.
deep in the shag, embedded in the carpet fibers, deep. You know, it's crazy how this works.
Yeah.
And like, I know what he means, but if you don't know the line, it sounds like we're insane people.
Well, it might sound like
Well-
we're insane people regardless, but if you can name
Yeah.
identify all the lines that we casually drop in this episode, I will promise to make
then
Luke
you're
do
insane.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll make
you have
Luke
a
do
problem
something.
if you sat through this episode and traced every reference. Hopefully your brain just lights up a little bit as we say them, and then you move on with your day, go to work. You know.
Now you're talking like normal people. That's unacceptable.
Yeah, let's get back to craziness.
So
Yeah.
Johnny, what's your favorite? What's your standout salient feature of Seinfeld?
Well, it's one of the better shows at the time in the 90s. It was one of the better shows, but it still holds up, which a lot of stuff from then and even more recently doesn't. Because it's sort of Shakespearean, and like a lot of the storylines it's like tragic comedy. Like, you know, there's different types of funny. Like, there's funny because, you know, relatable funny. Like, that guy got hit in the head. I know that hurts, so I'm going to laugh at his pain. But there's also the, like, oh, man, like, there's one bit of information I have that the actors don't. That if I could just yell up to them, it would resolve the whole conflict.
Yeah, and it feels so tense, right?
And like you are in the know and they're not, and you watch them like scurry and try to get. But the fact that it was like made fun of as a show about nothing, but I think that's what makes it like kind of evergreen and classic, is because it's not obsessed with like 90s politics or pick a thing like from the time. It's just about four people fucking up pretty much, like whatever, like trying
Constantly.
to pull things off and fucking up. That's why Always Sunny, another show that I think is a more modern, darker version of Seinfeld, is a really great show that's still going strong, is because it's about like the worst people ever and just putting that character in a situation. And Seinfeld was the same way, that these are terrible people, socially speaking. Like they know all the right like buttons to hit. Like, oh, I got to say this. Someone died. I got to send this condolence.
Right.
Like they have all those social things down. You can hear Larry David's voice in their dialogue, but they are constantly fucking it up because they don't really feel those things. They know
Right.
what's expected of them, but there's no feeling there. So they're
all dead inside.
like, I just watched The Soup Nazi last night because why not? It's a great one.
Yeah.
And the Soup Nazi kicks Jerry's girlfriend out because she's kissing in the place.
There's
It
no
bans her.
kissing in my line.
Thank you.
Nobody kisses in my line.
Yeah. She goes, I could kiss wherever I want. And then she goes, no soup. He goes, no soup for you. Get out. You're banned. And then she goes, fine, Jerry, we're going. He looks at her and goes, do I know you? But you see him look at the soup Nazi and look back at her, and then he explains it in the next, because that's just a hilarious scene.
But the information
in the
he
next
sent
scene,
to the soup Nazi was like with eye contact, like,
Well, the soup
no, I'm
Nazi-
with you,
yeah,
not
Soup
with her.
Nazi looks
Yeah,
back
but-
at him like, you're not going to take her side. Like,
Yeah.
you know the soup is better than she is.
Yeah.
But so that's what, when Elaine is giving him a hard time for it later, he goes, well, I just figured it's easier for me to make up with her than it is with
Yeah.
the soup Nazi. Like,
Right.
he's a soup
Yeah.
Nazi.
Like he has
he's
a
lot less
chance
forgiving.
to regret it there, and he's just like, have you tried the soup?
He's like, I could bring her some of the soup maybe and win her over again. But like it's just that kind of soulless
As
game
if
theory.
soup
It's
could ever
funny.
be so good as to justify that decision.
Well,
I mean,
So yeah, I think what makes Seinfeld great is it's focusing on social like norms and constructs while deconstructing them. Be like, maybe not so much. Like that, and that's why it's such a great show that still holds up.
Word.
definitely.
I would
Joe?
say on the nothing thing, that's like a joke because it's about a lot of things. It's not about nothing, but it's not about the same things that previous sitcoms were about, like cute
Or
little
Since.
like or Since, really, right?
Yeah.
That's why it still stands out, as nobody could do that except like Curb, but that's obviously just a
Or kind
continuation
of Always
sorts.
Sunny too. Yeah.
Always Sunny, but when you brought up the Always Sunny comparison, I think it's the same with the characters. Like you have like almost the same types. Like the Charlie is kind of the Kramer, and Jerry is kind of Dennis. Like they're the sort of kept together ones, the wild card ones. There's the helpless person who thinks they should be successful, but they're just one of the losers. That's Dee or Elaine. And then Mac is sort of like the dumb one that just has bad luck and doesn't understand why or how to fix it. That's George, right? Like the characters all map on, but the Always Sunny universe is kind of normal. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're not dealing with insane people in the world.
They are the
insane people, and
Right.
they cause chaos everywhere. Whereas in Seinfeld, the universe is sort of this like imaginary world. It's not like you're breaking the laws of physics, but every bad coincidence that could happen to characters does.
Yeah.
Any moment of success is a fleeting thing that leads to more awful coincidence that make the characters fail and become unhappy again, and they make the same mistakes
and we know
again.
it's coming every time.
Yeah, and we know if there's one possibility, 1 out of a million chance that like a golf ball could fall into a blowhole of a whale, it will, and it'll be a Titleist.
Yeah.
In
So that's why I
Kramer's
think
shot.
Seinfeld's good.
But the other thing
Because
that they, No, go
because they
ahead.
switch off like there's no good guy. Like a lot of shows, there's a good guy, like a protagonist, and it's kind of like linear that way. But they always switch off. Sometimes nobody's the good guy. Sometimes it's not one of their characters; it's somebody else that they're just tormenting with their worldviews or how they go about stuff. But but like they switch off. Sometimes Elaine's the horrible person, and Jerry's like, "How can you do that?" Sometimes it's Kramer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's Kramer's the good person who's like talking down to them, and that's funny in its own way.
Right,
'cause
when
it's like,
Kramer's the one with wisdom, it's like,
Right.
Jesus Christ.
They're all interchangeable roles that they like.
Yeah.
based on the
Yeah,
episode.
and that's why. And I think if you listen to any of the behind the scenes stuff, that was done out of desperation because Larry and Jerry were like, "How are we going to keep writing this show? Like, it's a show about nothing. Fuck. Like, we're already out of ideas. We're not even done with the first season.
Yeah.
But it just worked. So
well, there is a progression too, in the sense that like a lot of shows, the reason why they become awful is because they never do change, and that can get old very quickly. But there is a progression in the sense throughout the series of where some characters don't change, like Kramer just keeps being Kramer. But George and Elaine, they go through sort of different career paths almost.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like a roller coaster ride that they work up to, where George is high up in the Yankees organization, where it's
Somehow.
Yeah.
and,
Somehow.
Well, early on in the series, he's just unemployed. You know, he quits his job in real estate
that
or
was-
whatever.
that's a joke that's kind of lost too because in the early
Yeah.
'90s, the Yankees sucked. Like,
Well, and
were
they
not
started
a
getting
great-
good while George was there.
Right,
the
which is
show.
hilarious in
Which
its
is-
own
yeah.
way, because Jerry's a Mets fan, so like that's why no one's ever impressed with his work with the Yankees, because they're just like, oh, great, George, like
He's
they
got the
hired
best
you.
job out of all of them, but like they're unimpressed.
But then eventually he gets like, of course he gets fired because inevitably he still is George, and he winds up getting a job at Kruger Industrial Siding or whatever. And it's like,
Do that.
it's like, wait, like were you really like at this great position with the Yankees for the right reason? Not at all. Now I work at Kruger Industrial Siding and
He
whatever.
tried to get fired from the Yankees. Like
tried
that's
so
how
hard.
Costanza he
Yeah.
like
The best scene is where he's eating. What is he eating in Babe Ruth's?
strawberries or
Strawberries in Babe
all over
Ruth's.
the uniform. Oh, this really stinks.
And he's just wiping his hands on.
That's a good idea, George. We have to get rid of the past. Move on to the free throw.
See, it's the irreverence. That's another thing that makes that show so great. Like nothing is really sacred there. Like they
Yes,
just-
and
I mean,
we
he's dragging the World Series pennant
but
trophy behind
that's
his car
George
doing
to a
donuts
T,
in the
right?
parking lot.
He's trying so hard to get fired, and he's such a failure he can't even do that.
He can't
It's like-
fail at failing.
Yeah, if
he
he-
can't
if
even
he- if he
succeed. He
didn't
can't
wanna get
succeed at
fired,
failing. Yeah.
Which
You know,
eventually
get canned,
he does.
which he does.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
eventually.
course.
Inevitably, yeah.
Would you say you have a favorite character?
Ooh.
Every time I think about it, it gets super hard
Oh,
again.
I can tell you my favorite.
but I
I-
think
I-
it might
Well,
be
it
George.
depends
Frank-
on
Frank
the
Costanza.
context.
Oh, I meant of
Yeah.
the four.
Oh, of the main four.
Yeah, yeah.
Four.
That's much
So
tougher.
I was gonna this sets up the would you rather. It's early, but we can bring it in now.
Yeah, we can do it
Is
whenever.
Out of the core four, who would you rather be stuck in an elevator with
For how long?
For 12
Elaine.
hours.
for an hour.
Wait, that sounded weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got to make some rules here.
Yeah, give us some more stipulations, John.
90s
Johnny.
Elaine or
Put
now
it away,
Elaine?
Luke.
No, it's all
Luke,
them
you're not
as
making it
characters.
better.
Elaine was a pretty tough, like feminist character, though. I don't think you're going to be able to make a move on her in a trapped elevator. so.
But I'm not. I think she's the
You
most
creep.
real person out of all of them, and she's just never found a normal person. Like everyone
I
she
would agree
dates
with
is
that,
crazy,
yeah.
and she happened to
Yeah, but
be
look
unlucky
who her
to find
friends
crazy
are.
friends.
But she has the.
That's what I mean.
She has the most legitimate background. It's mentioned
Yeah.
throughout the show how she comes kind of from money, and she went. There's this line where
Well,
Jerry says like, "Oh, she won like equestrian competitions," and
Her
you know,
father, is the rich author. and-
yeah.
Her mother was a mother.
Well, that's
No, his
that's
mo-
because
that's
mother
the
was a
one
mother.
mother we never
Father
meet
was a
or
mother.
hear about or
just
anything.
that we meet Elaine's dad.
and he's
Yeah.
a scary guy.
Right.
Well, that's because Elaine, Julia Louise Dreyfus was like independently wealthy. I'm pretty sure
Well,
she's
her,
like
Yeah.
No, she comes from big family money. I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so like it's just kind of funny that they made the character based on this. It's like she is cultured and worldly, but she's also kind of crass too because she
Right.
doesn't care.
Not quite as
like in
bad
some
as
ways,
Dee, but
in some ways George might be better in the elevator because George, even though he's a worse person, he wants you to be liked so badly. Like that's his big weakness that he's going to go out of his way to try to befriend you and be nice to you. Whereas Elaine might not care so much.
I might
and she
wanna
might just
stuck
be
with
kind of
Kramer, though, just for
Yeah,
the
that would just be like a wild time.
But I feel like Kramer would be like he would do something crazy, like start to take off his shirt, and you'd be like, "What are you doing, Kramer?" He'd be like, "Well, you got to take off your clothes." And
or
you'd
he'd just be like, I got to put butter on my nipples. I'm doing this like special Da Vinci like massage technique.
"Well, you know, Da Vinci
That's
got
another
through
question
broken
I have.
elevators."
So I usually
so you rub
this
them
is
right
a
on the
would you
nipples?
rather-
Oh, you better believe it, buddy.
This is a would you rather. It's sticking to me because of the butter. The Parmesan and oregano are sticking to me because of the butter.
You know what
I
else I
figured
figured
out
out?
about that scene.
You can eat it.
I'm covered
I
in
wanna- I just
Parmesan
wanted to-
and oregano, and
That's
it's
it.
sticking to me because of the butter.
You got to go up when you do it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw this would you rather out because I feel like as we talk about the characters, it'll help with your decision. So don't answer now. Just keep it on the back burner in your mind.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
of who would you rather be?
And what's the
stuck
time
in
limit
an elevator
that you're
with?
stuck? Unknown?
Let's say 12 hours. So you know you're going to
hours.
get out, but you don't have a clock in there, so you don't know how much time's passed, but you know it's going to be
Well,
like,
Kramer
if
can
you
keep
really
time.
got to shit or piss, like you can hold it, you know? But this is another question I have, which I'm asking seriously. If they were all real people alive now, do you think Kramer would be a Trump supporter? I kind of do. I kind of think
I
he'd
don't
be
know enough about him
pro-Trump.
as an actor. Like, for me, his identity,
Not
when
the
I see him
actor.
talk as not Kramer.
Not-
Oh, you mean Kramer the character?
Kramer the character.
Oh,
Like,
I think
Kramer
he could be
is kind
tricked
of
into
a-
anything,
Yeah,
probably.
I think
He's kind of
Jerry
a
would like
fringy.
I think Jerry would be
he's-
more likely
he's
to
an
be like
asshole.
that than
But I think Jerry
Kramer.
would like Trump out of humor too.
Like,
'Cause the
Jerry's
way he would-
definitely an asshole, for
Yeah,
sure.
the way he would justify it would be along the lines of, "Oh yeah, that makes sense, you know, because of this thing."
that, and he'd be like, "Well, things are working out for me, so
Yeah. I feel pretty great.
double down on that."
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so that's another good question, which is, why do we enjoy the show knowing we're watching basically horrible people? Like,
So
an
that-
asshole who's...
That's what I was going to say about the reason why I like the show is that
Right.
I think what they do is they really reveal the worst in everybody. Because that's essentially what they are in different ways, right? They all are kind of different types of people in the sense that, I mean, we've already kind of talked about this, about how, like, George is kind of this guy who never really had the skills to excel.
was
at-
always
at
faking
anything.
his way into
or the
things, always
Because he has to,
pretending.
but
Because he has to. Because he's not really actually
he's
smart.
not like physically attractive enough to get away with being physically attractive enough. He's not smart enough to succeed in life being smart enough. He's not talented in any other.
His
When you
whole
say it
life's
like
a
that, it
sham.
feels pretty depressing.
Do you have anything in your life
Yeah.
any reason, conceivable reason to get up in the morning? I like to read the Daily News.
Yeah.
But and so he has to, in some ways, he has little choice sometimes, it seems, other than to take the skeevy, weaselly route.
Or he's just so used to that as his default that the few genuine moments he has, like, remember when him and Jerry at season 7, it's a big turning point for the show, and it opens up with the episode where they freak out, like, what are we doing with our lives? We're just petty people.
Oh,
We
yeah,
break
the-
up with
the
girls for
proposal, yeah.
stupid reasons. And
We're
they,
not
What are these
men.
lies?
we're not men is the thing, right? We're definitely not men. And George goes, well, obviously we're not men. Like,
He goes,
we never thought that, right?
We're pathetic. He goes,
That-
like,
that's-
I don't know, I'm pathetic.
Yeah.
He's just all of a
It's
sudden on
definitely
board. Oh yeah,
something.
Yeah,
this
he's
is
on
awful,
board
yeah.
with
But George seems to have a genuine moment at the beach watching the seagulls and watching other couples, and then he goes and proposes to Susan, right? And then he comes back and he's excited to tell Jerry, and he's like excited. He tells him, and he's like, "So Jerry, how's it going with whatever girl?" And he goes, it didn't work out. He goes, "Why?" And he goes, "She ate her peas one at a time."
I seen her eat corn niblets, but she scooped them.
That's what was so vexing.
Yeah, and that's why he broke
We
up
could
with her.
probably just go through a script if we wanted to.
Oh, you could
prove it,
analyze
but,
the hell out of that.
no, I meant like we could just literally recite.
Oh, we probably could. But I mean, like,
yeah,
in
the
terms
one
of,
thing
like, what
to
that
improve
episode's showing,
Seinfeld-
you could, yeah.
Yeah.
The one
definitely.
thing to make Seinfeld better would be to take out all the favorite actors and then turn it into a radio drama
yeah.
with us. That's what the people want. And we're all about giving the people
I
what they
said
want.
could, not might.
That's what, like, the two
Or
weirdos who are actually have made it this far in the podcast. That's definitely what they want.
I think Seinfeld is the safest show to do this with, though, right? If we did this with,
there's
like,
so much material, yeah.
you know, Gossip Girl, you know, like, who's gonna sit?
First of all, that show rocks.
yeah, no, I'm not digging on the show in any negative way. Don't get me
Eric
wrong.
jumping to the defense lightning fast.
Oh, so then the end of that story was George all of a sudden gets depressed when he's like, "Oh, Jerry just broke up with a girl because of the pee thing, and I'm just getting engaged, right?" And all of a sudden he's not very excited, and he's like, maybe I don't want to do
Well, no,
this."
he gets mad because he says, "What happened to the
Yeah,
pact?"
Yeah.
we had a pact.
Yeah.
We had a pact, and Jerry
And
goes,
if that's
"I shook
the
your
only
hand."
reason you're getting married is because, like, a bet with a friend, basically, like, that's a terrible idea.
It was,
Right.
it was a bet with a friend, and he's in his head is going like, well, that's what grown-ups are supposed to do.
Well, it's
Yeah,
grown-ups
but
are
really
supposed
they're
to
all
be grown-ups together, and it turns out I got duped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got-
Well, no,
I
no,
don't
it's
exactly
Because I was
what
just a
Myself.
kid. We're really just still kids playing. Jerry decided at that moment to play the adult game.
Yeah,
And
for
I took
fun.
it way
Yeah, 'cause-
too far, and
Right.
I'm like,
They're-
oh shit.
They're all so codependent
Yeah.
that, like, it's more important to do what Jerry's doing,
Right,
or you
yeah.
know what I mean, than to.
Well, none of them
but they're
want
all-
one
they're
of them
all-
to succeed. They just all want to, like, bask in their loserness over
because
and
none
over.
of them are a complete person. Maybe between all of them, but like George and Jerry together maybe make one whole person.
They try that.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did, and that was the best relationship. Most successful
everything was
relationship
working.
either
Oh
of them had.
yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's
Who
exactly.
buys an umbrella anyways? You get them for free in the coffee shop in those metal cans. And then Jerry, what does Jerry say? He's like,
Those belong to people.
Those belong to people. And it's like that. And then the look on George's face, like he's like, so what? And then like chastised and like, oh fuck it, whatever. But like that's how much they need each other. Just basic universal
George is
things.
willing
like,
just to run all the errands for Jerry and benefit basically in no way from the relationship.
Yeah.
And Jerry just takes her out on dates, and George is like, "Don't forget to mention she got a haircut." Blah blah blah. He runs all the errands, and he just needs Jerry so much that he's willing to do that.
Yeah, that's a
For
good
him.
point. Just to see a relationship actually function.
See what it looks like.
Yeah.
We
just to
also
get
saw
people-
what
he
happened
also-
when George becomes a different George. He becomes smart when he's not having sex, right? And
Absolute
I learned
zero.
Portuguese.
that's one. That's a great way to show how Jason Alexander is such a great actor, you know.
Yeah.
But he had like the George qualities of like the way he talks and the energy, but it was like in a positive way when he was smart George, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't distracted by petty things. He was like had his aim on a larger life mission. You
Yeah,
know?
the anxiety is kind of melted
yeah,
away.
and then it just came right back.
Until he met who?
The Portuguese waitress.
Thank you. I
Mathematically,
calculated
Jerry, I had to do it.
Yeah. Oh no, it was a Portuguese housekeeper.
No, it was the Portuguese waitress.
chambermaid.
No, it was the waitress in the coffee shop.
Oh, it was the waitress, you're right,
Portuguese.
you're right.
Well, he learned Portuguese.
Yeah.
But when he goes back,
No,
when
he
he's
picked
smart,
it up from his housekeeper.
Picked
That was
it up.
it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Must have just
Right,
picked
but-
it
Must have
up.
just
then-
picked it up.
I must have just picked it
Well,
up.
I
But
haven't
then,
been having sex, so.
But then when he meets Marissa Tomei and it's his he puts
yeah.
the most effort into a relationship, he brings up the manure bit again about
Tries it again.
and
yeah.
she's like, "Did you just think of that?" And he's like, "What? You think I'm doing material?" I was like, "Yes, we all know you are."
Manure.
In the audience, you got mauve, which is pretty good, and then newer. That's nice. Something's newer. And Marissa Tomei goes for it. It
the
works.
best
She's
is,
like,
he's like 2
manure.
for
That's
2
not
with
bad."
that bit. It's so stupid.
It's so dumb, and that's why that's one of his go-tos.
It's
That's one of
Nua, which is good, with a ma in front of it. It's not bad.
which is also good.
And she didn't call you back after.
Yeah, and it was around this time that she mentioned the boyfriend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. She mentions the boy.
So Eric, what's your like singular kind of like zoomed out Seinfeld? Why it's
So
Seinfeld?
zoomed out wise, I don't think I can go a day without referencing it.
Oh,
and it's complete at this point. It's not even a conscious decision I'm making. I'll be, with fellow work people, or they'll say a comment that makes me think of an episode, and it's boom.
Doesn't it suck though when you're around non-Seinfeld
Well,
people?
that's what I was about. I always am.
Oh, okay.
It's very
Yeah.
rarely I get to talk about it with people who are like, I love that episode. So they're
Yeah.
just like,
Or who can just continue the next part of the quote, right? Yeah.
That's even
Well, it's been
better
off
is
the air
instead
for
of being
20
like,
years.
"Oh, I see you've quoted Seinfeld." If the person just comes right back with the next line,
Yeah. And then you're like, oh,
or
they get
there's two ways to respond to a
definitely got it.
Seinfeld quote thrown your way. You can either come back at the next line in the script, or you can use something in that line as a jumping off point for another random line.
as a springboard.
yeah, like Eric just did.
I think he re-gifted and then he de-gifted, and now he's using a upstairs invite as a springboard to a Super Bowl sex romp.
Can we do like a lecture, like a seminar at a university or something?
Well, like I remember people would always ask us as when we were like in high school, and we would do things like this, and people would say, "What if you use this energy for good?"
And we would tell him to fuck
yeah.
off.
Yeah.
That's not a Seinfeld reference.
Well, the
that's
first
just
answer,
genuine.
the first
Yeah.
question to that is: do you think I chose to do this? Like, do you think I chose for this to be bouncing around in my head all the time?
Yeah, I
Is
didn't
this
like go
everything
out,
on TV.
set out to memorize this shit.
Yeah, it's like this shit. When it was syndicated, it would run. Remember, from like 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 every night. So
Every
you get
night.
home from school, do your
And then
homework.
again at
it's
like 10 or 11 or whatever.
Yeah, it is like everything else sucks on TV or is the news, and I'm a teenager. Like I don't give a fuck about that. So you just watch Seinfeld again.
Yeah.
This is fucking hilarious. Trying to hook a marble rye on a fishing line.
From
Like
Schnitzel.
that's a hilarious premise at whatever age you are.
So I
Like,
watched
that's
it
what's
at
great
3
about it, too.
distinct ages. One was too young to get any references. The second was like later in high school where I could be like, "Oh, they're talking about like the the trial with the murderer football player. What's O.J. Simpson trial? Or I could be like, oh, they're talking about abortion when they're talking about it's a pizza the moment you put your fist in the dough. It's not a pizza till you slide it out of the oven. Like, I didn't know that was about abortion when I was in like 6th grade.
You're just like, oh, Kramer's really funny.
Yeah, like, oh, that Kramer's the weird one.
Can you guys think of another sitcom from the 90s that did like an abortion episode that had any jokes in it that was jokey at all, like let alone being like the whole premise of the joke of the episode?
Well, you can say that about so many social issues,
but they didn't make a comment on it. They just made fun of the fact that it's such
they made a joke about
issue.
it. They
made a joke
if it was on a show,
Yeah.
if it was on a show, it'd be the serious part of the sitcom, you know, and then the B storyline would be little
the
Timmy
hugging and the nice music, but not here.
Yeah.
It's about pizza here.
But Larry specifically, we were saying this in the car, that Larry had a no hugging, no learning policy about Seinfeld, which meant it can't be like one of those sitcoms where everybody comes together in the end and learns their lesson, and you get a life, affirming, oh, when you do this good thing, then things work out in the end.
And that's
Seinfeld
why
shows
it
you
works,
no matter
because
what you do, it won't work out, so mine will be a shitty person. That's the moral of Seinfeld.
Well, also because in those hugging and learning shows, it's like they learn something and like they get better or something. Like I learned not to make fun of people, this and that. But then the next episode, they're back to making fun of, right. It's nothing changes. It's the same universe every episode.
Yeah, just resets.
But if you set that in the universe of, of course they don't learn or grow because they're terrible people, that makes that aspect even better.
Right.
Because like they're reliable. They're not going to change suddenly and learn. They're going to make the worst decision. Like George is going to park in that handicap spot, and the universe is going to punish him for it by destroying his father's car.
Right.
I think it was last week, you guys, it might have been the part 2 one where Luke said something to the effect of like pretending to be handicapped. I don't even think Costanza would do that. And then he had like this moment, and Johnny, you were like, no, Costanza's definitely done that. Like
like a couple of times.
He's literally done that in an episode
like
that was all about that.
At least half of them have done that.
They have no regard for rules unless it's a rule that they're immediately benefiting from.
No, that's the thing. They get bogged down in the rules way more than just normal people who are nice and go about their lives. Like, the re-gifting, or you got a gift, or how long to wait, you got to see the baby. Like, they don't want to see the baby. They know they have to go see the baby, so they've timed it to when all right, this is absolutely the last, now we have to go.
If we don't go now,
whereas
it's not
most
a baby
people,
anymore.
We don't get the credit for it, and we broke that rule.
Right,
whereas most people are like, no, I want
to Hamptons friend where we can go use it as an excuse for vacation.
So it's just that they have their own rules. They don't they have their own weird world of rules that's why, going back to Always Sunny, that's why that show's great, because when they bring someone from outside the cast, like the main cast, they're always like the intervention episode, she's like, well, you've been talking about like holding a man at gunpoint for intervention, and you've also been drinking wine out of a can this whole time, and it's 10 in the morning.
Like, oh, you saw that.
You noticed.
And they're like,
and
oh, and they just totally disregard
drunk.
her.
Yeah.
Also, we're at a bar.
It's like, we're in a bar. Like, we're in a bar discussing an intervention. It's like, but they follow their own rules of like, we got to get Frank somehow. Our version of it, like that's
gotcha.
Intervention.
And they're
that's
also
how
very
Seinfeld
deaf.
is.
Like
They all
can't
have their
hear
own-
anybody telling them things if they have their plan in mind on Always Sunny. Seinfeld characters have a little bit more intelligence, but because the universe is set up against them, they're just almost set up to fail. Like I think Elaine has the highest chance of succeeding. Do you know? So just to finish my point from before, there was like the end of high school version of watching it. And now I've been rewatching it for about 2 months, and I see a much darker, deeper thing behind it. It's still funny at the end of the day, but like, for example, I think Elaine having the highest chance of success, right? There's an episode where she's dating this really cool young guy, super good looking, and he gets in a rock climbing accident, and his face gets really smashed.
Tony.
You better step off.
You said
Mañana?
step off?
Yeah.
Such a cool guy.
Yeah, Tony was super cool, and Elaine was clearly with him for his looks. Now he falls off the rocks, and his whole face is in bandages, right?
He's a
male bimbo.
And Elaine loses all of her, fire for the relationship. She's like, what if his face is messed up? And then she's sitting with Jerry at the coffee shop, and they're talking, and it turns into this genuine Elaine moment where she's like, maybe the problem is me. Maybe I should learn to love someone deeper, and their looks have nothing to do with it. Maybe I can still be with him even if he is
Yeah,
deformed.
she starts crying.
Maybe I can learn to
What is
love for
Jerry?
real. And Jerry's looking out the window going, what is that, like, going on, and something outside?
Yeah.
He's like, what is that, like, George outside or something? And Elaine just looks up, and then you can see, like, Elaine's like, fuck those emotions. I'm going to shove those right back down where they came from and never listen to those again.
Yeah.
And that's why she's doomed to fails, because she can't, like, reset,
Well, she also
get on the main
admits,
road
too,
and
Jerry
move
says,
forward.
I thought you said you weren't dating him for his looks, and she goes, yeah, I lied.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, I said that. You didn't believe it, did you?
She's just as superficial as all them. It's just
Yeah.
You generally don't see it play out that way, but
Well, yeah, I think she tries to be like chaotic good, but
Right.
she's not. And like Jerry's obviously like a chaotic neutral.
George is a
I guess-
chaotic loser.
Yeah, George is more towards the evil, but yeah, they all are. Like she definitely prides herself on thinking she's better than them or the best
Absolutely,
one in the
yeah.
group, but she's just as bad.
look, look who her
Yeah.
only friends are. It's them. Like
Yeah, but look what happens when either
She only has
she
male
gets a li-
friends.
Yeah.
Something wrong with a woman who only has male friends.
It's actually,
She only-
that's
she-
a thing,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think.
I mean, but when she gets a little bit of power, like what does she do? She runs the company into the ground and fires
Right.
everyone, right? When Peterman,
that's
he'll
why
always be
that's why a
Burma
woman
to
shouldn't
me.
be a CEO.
Oh yeah, because Kramer.
Yeah, that's
you
the
go.
life lesson.
Because Kramer tells her she can do it because he's fighting children.
That was a seamless
Yes.
transition to
Yeah.
the second part
Kramer
of the.
motivates her to run the company.
children.
false confidence from fighting children at
Yeah.
karate.
Well, we're all at the same skill level.
yeah.
But Kramer's exactly the kind of person that you might believe, despite all the surface problems, you might believe he has some deep inner sense of self and core, value or something. And so Elaine really believed him, know?
Yeah, right.
And then we find out as the audience, the dramatic irony, of course, that Kramer doesn't have that within him. He's just an idiot who's fighting kids at a karate dojo and destroying them because he's giant. He's not even a normal-sized adult. He's like a really tall guy.
Because then he gets beaten by like a dozen
All of them. Yeah.
children later at
Oh,
once.
yeah, in the
which,
back
like,
alley.
Even if they know karate, I'm pretty sure I could take on like 6
But there's like a
10
dozen
6-year-olds.
Yeah. But
or
it's
a dozen
also,
6-year-olds. I don't think I'd get overwhelmed as quickly as he did, and I don't know any karate.
But Elaine comes down to the dojo to thank him for that confidence boost and sees what's happening.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
automatically her confidence gets
well,
shattered. It's
everything
great.
that she was like, I'll be a good person, I'll do this. She was like, oh shit, it's all based on a lie,
I'm beating up children.
Also,
Right,
it's
that's
such
the
a
guy.
fake
He's not some-
universe.
yeah.
Like, they wouldn't have that in any dojo where adults are just fighting kids. One, the kids would not pick up the random adult who lives in a random apartment building. Come on, Kramer, my mom's waiting downstairs. That little
they
kid,
might. I mean, Kramer
he should
has
get an
been
Oscar for
mistaken.
that.
Oh yeah, and they're in the back of the car. It's
Yeah.
like, can we get ice cream?
goes-
And Kramer's like, Ma.
He goes, thanks
Kramer
for the juice
has
box,
been-
Mrs. Z.
Can we get ice cream? And all the kids yell, please. And he's going, please.
Please, yeah.
It's all
No,
a
but it-
fake universe, and like we're
But
expected
no,
to
not
just
necessarily.
accept this.
Not necessarily. He's been mistaken for being mentally handicapped before.
That's true.
Remember?
After the
And
dentist,
you do that
yeah.
all
I saw
by
that episode
yourself.
yesterday.
Yeah, I do it by
Well,
myself.
maybe
Like,
that would
he's
have.
got the
Maybe
shoes.
that flies in the '90s. I just mean Kramer's not getting picked up by that mother in 2018.
Well, we were talking about that
Oh,
earlier.
yeah.
How interesting it is that handicap episode where or the what is it, the shoe episode or whatever? Jimmy,
Where the
Kramer-
shoes that make you jump higher, Jimmy.
where Kramer's acting like he's mentally
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
challenged.
Mel
No,
Torme.
but of course he's
Jimmy
not
wants to
acting
ask
like
you
it.
out.
I mean, as an actor, he is.
it was
but
the Novocaine.
Right,
It's the Novocaine
but I mean,
from his
even
dental
today, even
surgery.
today, like if you did that episode today,
Oh, yeah,
that
yeah.
would cause like an insane uproar. But so many other episodes that they did then that were the
be
controversial
fine.
ones, like the contest. That at the time,
All
they
the
were like-
sexual ones.
Yeah, they're like, we don't know if we can get away with something that's that sexually innuendoous. And if you did that today, like nobody would even bat an eye. at
and
it.
and
you're
it,
right.
We
was
got
all,
Game of
it was all
Thrones. We
about
got-
hiding
we got-
it behind
yeah,
the language
kill-
when
yeah.
they did something sexual.
Yeah.
The biggest television show the last 10 years is the first season is a really attractive guy pushes a kid out a window and then go fucks his sister. Like that, so things have definitely changed.
Wait,
It's
what?
Game of Thrones.
What kind of TV are you watching? Wait,
Game of Thrones. That's the first
Oh,
episode.
Game of
gotcha.
Thrones.
That's
yeah.
the literally the first episode is
My mind went
that
to
happens.
cable
No
TV, yeah.
spoiler alert. So
I was thinking like
Yeah, if you haven't
sitcom
seen
like
it.
of style. I think HBO is obviously.
didn't
I mean,
see
it's
that
not,
one?
it's
It's
not
on
a spoiler
ABC.
because they're pretty much all hot and banging their sister in the show. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, no.
Isn't that
Luke
wasn't that the
Skywalker
series
bangs Luke
finale
Skywalker's
to
sister.
Yeah. What?
The series finale did 2 broke girls. They finally couldn't pay the rent, so they just did some weird sex stuff, and the show ended. Right?
Yeah, that's what happened.
I never saw it.
I didn't either.
So my question to the group here, just because I had a few random questions. What is the darkest George moment you can think of?
Ooh.
And I say darkest because like there's a lot of like classic George gets fucked over by
so
something.
there's
some dark
Here's the
ones.
thing, because what you really maybe want to ask is if you take out
I know what I want to
the
ask.
subjective, the subjective level of like the comedy involved, and you just look at it as, say, you were just reading a report on what he does, or you just saw this through like a camera without the the cutting and the laugh track and all that. Which would really be the darkest moment? Because there are some where you watch and you laugh, and looking at it through that lens, you might look at it and say, wow, that's really fucked up. That's a lot more fucked up than maybe I thought initially because of everything else that was going on around him and like how the other people reacted. Whereas if you just saw that, him acting handicap or something, or there's a bunch of other examples, you might look at that and be like, that's really fucked up. Like if you told me you were doing that, I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you'd be like, you parked in the handicap spot
and just said fuck
so
it.
you could go into the mall, and they'd be like, yeah, I was in and out in 5 minutes. It was great.
Yeah, I'd be like,
dude, that just doesn't feel right. That
dude,
sounds
that's really
fucked
shitty.
Up.
Like,
So
I
that's
think-
dark in that way. Yeah.
A more intense version is like defrauding a company to get to hire you by telling them you're handicapped.
That's
pretty bad.
that's the worst.
Because
one.
you get perks.
Really bad.
Also, you're getting
creating
perks and
a
other.
foundation and accepting all this money.
yeah, $10,000.
Or, I mean,
It's hilarious though, because he did it out of laziness, and then he gets
Well,
screwed.
no, he did it out of
punished for
cheapness too, because he wasn't actually giving real gifts. So he was just
Right,
like,
he wasn't getting anything out of that.
Well,
the
he
human
was
fund.
getting
It wasn't
the
like he was
social acceptance
he was
that
getting
he's
like George
right,
gave a gift.
right,
yeah,
true.
Well, he was
Yeah,
pissed
he was
that
getting
his
gifts
gift was
from
given away as like, oh, a donation has been made in your name. So he said, "Fuck it, I'll just make up a foundation. People will think that a donation is being made in their name, and I won't have to
and
pay
he's
any
saying,
money."
"What's the difference?"
Yeah.
Right. And it's like
That's fucked
the
up.
difference is you made it all up. Like
Yeah.
I did that in high school, by the way.
That's
because
true.
of that episode.
I remember.
I
I got
printed out
one. You made a
things.
donation in my name. It was great. Thank you.
You among others, but it was you know what it is the people can't call you out for it because all you're saying in your name, and it's not like I put my paycheck in my bank account in your name, like.
There's no way to check it.
But also,
And you're
it's
a
like
dick
a
for
nice
trying
thing. You're
to,
saying
you know?
I donated
Yeah.
to a charity, and I used the money I would have used to give it to you. So really, you donated to a charity. I just made you do it. But people aren't going to call it out because it sounds like a nice thing to do.
Wait, you actually made a thing called the Human Fund?
Yeah, and I gave it out to everyone.
How much?
I just said a donation has been made in your name to the
no,
Human
yeah, he
Fund,
just-
and I wrote
that's a-
people's names on it.
That's amazing.
He didn't create a real foundation. He did exactly what
It
George
was just that exact one. Yeah.
No, I mean
Yeah.
I didn't like actually collect money from people. It was just a joke. Everybody I handed it to knew I'm quoting Seinfeld.
Did they?
Not everyone.
which is
I'm being
In
honest.
fact, nobody.
But see, that's not that dark because you did it to be funny. Like,
But you,
know,
also
George
weren't
did it
getting
to get
Christmas
away with
gifts in
something.
return, were you?
No, it wasn't like I got you this because you got me that, and we're all
That's what
supposed
I
to get each other something.
Yeah, we're all square now.
I might try that at the
Yeah.
restaurant. There's
Oh.
usually a Secret Santa
Oh,
at
big
the
time
end of
I'm
the
gonna
year.
try that at the
I'm
restaurant.
gonna just give a donation in someone's name, and they're gonna be like, "Fuck this! That guy got an iPod. This guy got Bluetooth headphones, and I get a fucking donation." Like I wasn't gonna donate anything this year. Like why should I get this?
But you
No.
can't say that because there's rules.
Yeah.
it's a gift because it's a gift.
It's
you
a
can't
gift.
say that about even if you get a shitty gift, you can't
have to
comment
say
on it. And,
thank you.
and that was his version of giving a intentionally shitty gift that you can't comment on.
So, with
But it's still good enough to count as a gift.
dark things that have happened to Costanza. Getting back to that,
Yeah.
I have two answers because one of them is like really dark to us and to the people around him, and doesn't seem that big of a deal to him, which is the death of Susan.
Oh,
Yes, that's what I was
fuck,
gonna say.
Right?
totally-
Like,
Yeah.
He's so
There's so much
relieved
Seinfeld,
at
I
his
forget
fiance.
major
He's the-
things like
Yeah.
that. Susan is
He's
his
so
fiancé,
relieved his
obviously.
fiance's
he
dead,
buys
and it's like
really cheap invitations that she licks, and then she dies, which
And
the
he
doctor
gets over it.
the doctor
so fast.
pinpoints.
No, his reaction is, huh.
Yeah, because in the Seinfeld universe, the doctor will say she seems to have been poisoned by some kind of cheap
Adhesive.
maybe those found on a really poor quality wedding invitation.
Nails it.
Yeah.
and then George goes like, so he goes, she's expired.
Yeah.
And he goes, like dead?
And he just goes, yes.
Oh, yeah.
At which point Kramer says, "Poor Lily." But anyway, my point is, he's over that
because he was
quickly.
never into the engagement. He just
In
got
fact, it only
tricked
drags
into it by
on
Jerry, right?
Right. It only drags on because of Susan's parents.
Right. Who
Otherwise, he would have been like, "I'm free."
who feel like he's
Well, if we can find a way to remember her,
She's not. She's
not
never
really-
truly gone.
That's the line that ruined my life.
Something about a light.
and it's just Jerry being
Star
bored
Trek
and
2.
saying a Star Trek line.
Wrath
to
of
someone.
Khan.
it was a Superman. Oh no, it
I
was a
know.
Star Trek
Jerry
line,
will
yeah.
tell you that Wrath of Khan is better.
Oh man, yeah, he's so relieved that she's dead. He's like, I'm gonna make a whole summer out of it.
Right.
Remember
The summer of George
Like-
is not the summer of mourning my fiance who suddenly
Well, no, he mourns. He
died.
says, "I've mourned for 2 long months.
Yeah.
It's time to live again."
He's eating
Yeah,
a
but
block
did
of
he
cheese.
mourn?
It's the size
Did
of a
he
car
mourn?
battery. But also, when Susan dies, the way that episode ends, and I think it's like the season 7 finale. Jerry had just gotten engaged, and Jerry is kind of upset, and George is like, I forget the exact interaction, but Jerry says, "Well, no, it's just that I thought we were both going to be engaged," and that was the whole thing all season. Was George was upset.
He was only engaged because of that.
Right, because of that deal that they supposed deal that they made, and George just goes like very jokingly, huh, "Shouldn't have gotten engaged," because that's what everybody was saying to him all season.
Right.
But this is right after he found out that she died, and he's
Yeah.
just like, ha, "Gotcha."
And then George, Elaine, and Kramer go to the coffee shop and
Let's
leave
go to the
Jerry
coffee shop.
sitting there.
Yeah.
Which has happened, I think, with all of them at some point, where the three of them
Yeah.
leave like, huh.
Yeah, like
Get some
the one
coffee.
person who's
That's a
like
shame.
kind of stuck for a moment in a deep problem. The other three are like, well, what can you do? Like, I'm over it.
They just move
certainly.
on.
Like,
That's a shame.
That's a shame.
I'm
yeah.
so sorry.
That's a shame.
Like whenever
I'm
something
so
terrible happens to
sorry.
someone else, you see each one of the Seinfeld characters showing that like I'm perfectly like happy to not care about this. Like whether it's the Miss Rhode Island's doves being like killed, like
my
George literally doesn't even make a sound.
He just
George is
grunts.
coming out brushing his teeth in the hotel room. Jerry has accidentally killed someone's doves that they were going to use for a magic show.
No, prize-winning trained
Miss
doves.
Rhode Island.
That she
prize
trained for
winner.
like 9
Somebody's
years
Yeah,
or
but
something.
very very high quality
for the
doves.
Miss America beauty pageant.
And so George
How
is
does
in the
he kill them
bathroom
again?
brushing and
No,
and
Jerry, they're making noise, so Jerry throws some water out over the balcony, and she wakes up the next morning, and she's like,
My
I
doves
found
are
my
dead,
doves
yeah.
dead in a pool of cold water.
As if that would
They
kill
froze
doves,
to
one.
death.
But in the Seinfeld universe, everything
Yeah,
bad
everyone
goes wrong.
accepts it.
Yeah.
So the doves died.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Doves are not water
One of
resistant.
Kramer's
No,
best
they're not.
rants, too, when he's yelling at Jerry about,
Yeah.
like, he figures out it was him.
Yeah.
Yeah, how, though?
I love
That's the other
Kramer.
thing. Not only the
Well, because
doves
he
dying...
sees the bucket.
I know, but, like, you wouldn't be thinking, like,
Well,
Kramer
if you wanted to kill doves, you wouldn't just pour water off of a balcony. That's not how you do it,
In the
because that
universe,
happens one out of
you
a
do.
million times, you know?
Tuck or no tuck?
But that's the rant that
Two
George
tucks.
hears and comes out and goes, what was that about?
Yeah. And Jerry goes, well, apparently when I dumped the water off the balcony last night, it killed all of Miss Rhode Island's doves. And George just
yeah.
goes, he shrugs his shoulders as he brushes and kind of like aimlessly walks back into the
Yeah,
bathroom.
it's just like,
You can see he puts just enough thought into. Does it affect me?
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Calculates.
Like and then moves on. Nope.
Like
doesn't
literally
affect
it
me.
doesn't affect me, and why would I do more than
And
shrug
the-
my shoulders?
the best part about that is at the very end of the episode when they're watching the Miss America beauty pageant and she decides to sing instead, even though she's never sang in her life before, and it's awful. And George goes, "This is awful." And Jerry goes, "It's like watching somebody getting beat with a sack full of oranges."
Yeah.
And George just goes, "That's a shame." And then
Yeah.
they switched the Yankee game, and George had switched their uniforms, team uniforms, from
some
polyester
polyester.
to cotton,
Right.
and they were all ripping, and it was a disaster. And Jerry's just eating popcorn, and then goes, "Yeah, it's a shame."
Like, they're all
They're just-
sociopaths.
Yeah, they're
Like,
just back
all
and
don't
forth,
care.
like, "Oh yeah, your life's ruined, my life's ruined." Like,
So there's almost an
Yeah.
equality there because
Yeah.
they all are equally sucking and having
at
bad
various
things
points.
happen
Well,
to
that's
them,
like the episode.
and they
like,
all equally don't
see,
care.
George was up, you were down, or you were up, George was down. Now George is up, you were down.
And
See
Jerry.
how it all evens out for me?
Even
Yeah,
Steven,
Jerry's
yeah.
even Steven. Jerry's
Lost
happy to be
$20.
like the
Yeah.
person who just sits back and watches it all play out,
Yeah.
and
Which
he
is-
can unemotionally just participate.
Pretty
Yeah.
constant throughout the whole series. Like, he's
But
the
it makes
neutral.
sense.
He always
He's
has
the
money. He's
stand-up
always
comedian,
comfortable.
like-
He's probably
that's-
the one who changes the least.
For sure.
In
And
some
for
ways.
some reason,
But-
you know, he's doing really well as a comic in New York. Never changes his apartment. Never changes his circle of friends. Like,
Yeah.
he's that static character. I mean, the others don't grow, but they change.
They changed in terms of like what they're actually up to.
Yeah, their jobs, what they look like, but
Yeah, kind of their
George
societal
loses
roles
hair,
change, right?
Elaine's hair changes.
Yeah, they changed like within the framework of society for
Kramer's
sure.
doing God
Elaine
knows
went
what.
from Elaine went from
Hang out
being
with
like a
Gomez.
manuscript editor, right? Like she edited like scripts and
Yeah, for
book,
Pendant.
like for a publishing company, which is pretty boring, dull stuff, I would imagine, and not that glamorous or well. And then she ends up running like a major fashion magazine.
Yeah, and then
So
she
she
winds up
into
picking
the
out socks
ground.
for Mr. Pitt. Like
Yeah, she does
that's
end up
her
just-
ending like role, I think, on the series. Like that's her last job, right? Like
No.
Well, it wasn't Pitt. Was her last job?
Peterman's after.
Peterman's well
Pitt.
after Pitt.
Yeah.
Oh, is he really?
Pitt's season 5 or 6.
Wait,
Pitt is the
Peterman
same season as the Doorman.
Yeah.
And speaking of Doorman, Johnny, Genie, you know the episode with the Doorman, right?
Yeah.
I think of the Doorman as like a genie, and Jerry was just unlucky enough to like walk into the territory where a genie was, and the genie was like, "I think I can play with this one."
Yeah.
Because like it was
There's a lot
all it was all just like Jerry was not a bad person there. He's just trying to be friendly, trying to be nice. He tried to make friendly talk, and everything he said to this doorman, the doorman would just shut it down. If he said, "Oh, did you see the Knick game?" The doorman would say, "Oh, I get it. I'm a doorman. I can only talk about sports, right?"
Yeah.
You know.
He's just fucking with
standing
him.
out front of
That's
his
so good.
building, and Jerry walks past him and goes, "Wait, you work here too?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I get it. The poor doorman has to work 2 jobs to put food on the table for mother and baby."
And Jerry's
No,
like,
I live here.
and Jerry's
That's
just
okay,
like,
but
isn't it?
I don't know.
That's okay, isn't it?
Jerry's just like, I don't know. I don't need to talk to you.
He's
Like,
like, yeah.
I could just leave.
Yeah.
Like,
You
But
really
it's also
think you're
like,
better than
how
me?
can you?
And then it's like,
how
no,
can
I
you get-
don't think I'm better than you.
He's the weirdo standing in front of a building though for no reason.
Yeah,
Like he
he's-
wasn't.
well,
Yeah,
smoking
why would
or
he
anything.
stand in
He's
front
just-
of a building even
Well,
he
'cause in the
especially
universe,
'cause he's
that's what they do.
because
That's
he's a
what
genie.
They
Yeah.
go home. Jerry even says that. He goes, "So you work at a door all day, and then you go home and stand in front of your own door?"
And he wasn't smoking or anything.
weird.
He was just standing there
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very odd.
like a genie because he knew he was coming.
Like a
But
genie.
Jerry later becomes the doorman, and instantly there's like that shift in power where he becomes the asshole.
Oh, and he loves being like, whoa, wait a second,
Right.
who are you?
You
So
think
it
you're
could
better
just be
than
that.
me.
Like you're opening doors for people all day. You're just like, this guy's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
I think I can fuck with him.
But he does genie him because when he leaves Jerry to be the doorman, he says, "Yeah, can you watch the door for me for a minute?" And Jerry goes, "Huh?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just got to grab a beer."
He says
It's like,
beer, yeah,
It's like, what do you mean you're just going to drink a beer? But he just genies his way out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not like an errand you need to run. It'd be
Yeah.
one thing if it's like
I don't
gotta
need to
go
pick up my
someone up from
medication before the
hospital, or,
pharmacy
yeah.
closes.
I gotta go grab a beer. It's like, wait, what?
It's like he
you'll
didn't
be
even
back
have a
in-
plan for that part of the excuse. He's like, yeah, I got to go, grab a beer. He kind of says it
Yeah,
haphazardly.
it's like he might not come back. Then that might be.
Yeah,
the
well,
end
he
of the
doesn't.
day.
laugh about it right now.
He doesn't come back.
So why'd you do it? I don't know, just to mess with him. I would say my darkest George moment. I noticed it like a couple weeks ago. It's the episode with the massage, and he
that's
gets the
interesting,
massage
yeah.
by the Raymond guy,
Yeah.
all that, and they get back to the place and they're talking about massages, and Jerry mentions that. Oh yeah, well, I'd like to make chit chat with them as they're massaging me because, like, I feel bad. They're just sitting there, blah blah blah. And George then says, "Yeah, I also like to make chit chat." He goes, "But it's not for that reason. It's more because I just don't think I should be able to enjoy the pleasure. I don't deserve it. So I just make chit chat so that I don't enjoy the
Wow,
massage."
that is a dark line.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
very
brutal.
George. That makes sense though for his character.
And it's like you mentioned already Frank Costanza. Anybody that's a Seinfeld fan listening knows Frank Costanza.
This
Or
is
should I
Frank
say
Costanza.
Frank Costanza.
You think you
when
can
you're
keep
raised by
us
those
out of
parents, you get a
Del Boca
George,
Vista?
you know?
We're moving in lock, stock, and barrel.
We're gonna be in the pool.
We're gonna be in
that poor boy
We're gonna
went
be all
home
over
sitting on
that
a cork.
shuffleboard court, and I dare you to keep us out.
There's
Power
something-
hang
Oh,
up.
the
He just slams the phone down.
The best Frank episode is where his flashbacks to the Korean War. That boy had to fly back home sitting on a cork.
Oh, that was my trivia question. I got
it's
them
a
on,
good trivia
Johnny.
question.
Was who was in Frank Costanza's Korean War chef debacle?
Hit pause
flashback?
at home if you want to
Yeah.
take a second to guess.
Yeah, who was the
Or
soldier?
in the car, wherever you are. Look at the road.
Mr. Kramer, the road.
Everything's a fucking reference.
Oh my god, who was the soldier who had to sit on a cork for the 18-hour flight home? What was his name?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't know?
Oh, are you asking me? Or
Yeah,
He wasn't listening.
yeah.
the soldier's name? I don't.
He had a
remember.
crater in his
Muskie or
colon the
something?
size of a cutlet. That's your clue. He had a crater in his colon the size of a cutlet. See, alliteration alone is beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, it's so good.
Crater, colon,
No, I don't-
cutlet.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Bobby Colby. That boy went home all right with a crater in his colon the size of a cutlet.
And they dramatized it. That's the whole point. Is in your brain, you're seeing this scene, and you think that the whiskey comes out, right? And Kramer's there.
pouring
It's
whiskey.
dark. You've always
It's very
seen Frank's
Apocalypse
house when
Now.
it's very
Yeah.
light
Everything
out.
just like.
Everything is very noisy. So the way the cork pops, the way the drink pours, you hear every
Yeah.
detail.
It's so well done.
sits
And it
down,
feels
big
very
sigh.
personal. He sits down, he sighs, and you think, I'm going to get this intense war story, and Frank's finally going to open up and show that, like he had a dark past. And Frank's memory is this psychotic, cartoonish world where cooking is just taking a thing,
big pan,
and smashing
smacking
some
it.
flour, and then he takes some meat and he just
throws a bunch of spice on it.
No, he's like, I thought if I season it just
Yeah.
long enough, and he just covers it and
I was
seasoning it,
young.
and
I was
hits
a
it with a
hotshot.
giant butcher's knife.
And then he nods like, "That's
Kid
good."
too, Frank.
You were just a kid. You were all kids.
Yeah, I love how they didn't like recast him. They just made like it was him, like it's an old man with like a hat on.
Yeah.
I never even thought of that.
Yeah,
It's just Costanza now.
yeah.
That was
in
Frank's
30
memory, though.
years
It's so
after the
stupid. It's
Korean War.
childlike, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah,
then, so when you have parents like that,
Men
I
were
think that's
keeling
why you
over
get
all
George.
around me.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. George
Those
never
hungry
had a
Jewish
chance.
singles need somebody to cook for him, Frank.
But George
And,
never
like,
had
that's
a
what he
chance
needs
'cause
to
that's
get
Right,
what
it
he
wasn't
was
even
raised
about feeding the homeless or something. It was like some event Kramer needed him for. So Kramer played the part of like really dramatizing this whole war thing
For his own sake.
for his own sake.
So I'm pretty sure,
dramatizing
Luke,
the
he was
event,
doing
too.
a bit on. It was a bit on Apocalypse Now, which is like Brando's just like drinking in the dark, like
it was also a bit on that
telling the
Vietnam
horror
War
story.
movie with who's the guy that was the villain in Spider-Man?
And,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Oh,
You just went into George mode. Like, oh yeah, that great movie,
William-
Spider-Man.
William Dafoe.
William Dafoe.
You talking about Platoon?
Platoon, yeah.
I think
So they
do that in
used
that too.
Samuel Barber's Adagio for
yeah,
strings.
right.
That sad string music
Yeah.
that's playing in the
Oh,
background.
that's the movie I'm thinking
And
of.
so,
then. I knew it was.
it was a
getting
re-
out.
it was
Men
a
were
reference
keeling
to that.
over all around me.
So instead of seeing like
I sent
machine
18
guns,
boys to the latrines that night.
like, not to their graves, not to their
No,
death,
but like
not
as
to
a
their-
chef though, that's the worst thing you can do.
Like
right?
that's
Yeah, but so they pooped.
That's his war PTSD.
Yeah, he has. He has
That's
the
why he
stress
yells
of
all the
war
time,
from
yeah.
sending some guys to the toilet.
Well, no, they had to fly on the corks.
One. Now here's another random
Oh my God.
pop quiz question, Johnny.
Okay. Then I wanted to say my darkest George before I forget. But go ahead.
Quick pop quiz. Again, hit pause if you can safely do so. Listening. Who is Kramer's friend that eats horse meat?
Oh, can I answer that one?
Yeah.
Pretty sure that's Bob Sacamano, right?
Nope.
I
Really?
That's the guy that sells
Oh,
rat
shit.
hats in Central Park.
I think
Are they just as good as Sable? No, but the difference is negligible.
It's a rat hat and a poorly made one.
even by
Even
rat
by
hat
rat hat
standards.
standards.
Hat stand.
But I think the guy who eats horse, that name is only ever mentioned once.
Yeah, I think that's the only time.
I think
Yep.
that's the only time.
It's this one scene.
I still consider him one of Kramer's best friends, though, just because I want to.
Yeah, no, clearly.
Purely because I want to.
Are you getting anything? Do you know the scene though, Johnny?
Yeah, it's drifting in.
Oh, I have a
just
friend who
know-
eats horse meat all the time. My friend, blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah, eats horse meat all the time.
He gets it from his butcher.
Yeah.
Gets it from his butcher.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm not getting
Go
it.
ahead.
All right, Jay Riemenschneider.
My friend Jay Riemenschneider eats horse all the time.
Like all the time,
I
not
wasn't
once a year, all
suddenly
the
gonna
time.
remember Jay Reed and Scheimer.
It's a one-time like name drop. It's a good one.
But it's such a perfect name for somebody, for some reason, who would eat horse
yeah, he
all the
would
time.
go-
I bought
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
What's your Dark
I-
George moment?
My Dark George moment is an obvious one that you guys are missing. It's when he knocks over an old lady and outruns a bunch of children to escape a small grease fire in a kitchen.
Yeah.
Well, to me, that's not
including
even the
a
darkest
clown.
part. The darkest part is him trying to defend it in front of the angry, violent clown, the angry, violent children, and the cops who really don't want to hold them back. And then at the
How
end of
can
his...
a clown not know who Bozo is? Listen, man, I don't know. You hung up on some clown from the 60s, man. When the clown freaks out on him for the first time, it's so good.
But when he...
John Favreau.
Yeah, that's right.
It is the director of a bunch of
Iron Man.
movies, of Iron Man movies and shit.
But when George tries to defend himself in front of like the police and the clown and all the children, he goes into this whole thing like, "I was clearing a path. I should be considered a hero. What world do we live in where heroes are cast down as cowards?" And he gives this like whole speech,
Like,
and then
maybe this will work.
And then the cop just kind of walks up to him and goes, "How do you live with yourself?" And George just goes, "It's not easy." He just like breaks down. He's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't take this."
Yeah, you're right, Johnny. I overlooked that one because it's almost so obvious. It's like that's one of those Seinfeld things. Like George also drops a Mickey in his boss's drink to get revenge.
Yeah,
like these
that's pretty
moments.
dark.
It's like,
But
are we
that's
to
different-
believe that
that's
this really
different than
happened?
saying- But that's like the whole game theory of, the fat man on the train tracks. Like, is your life versus another life, or your life versus two lives, or this? But it's like George didn't even stop to think like 30 children or me. Like he could have still gotten out of there and made sure the kids got out.
It wasn't
But he
even
was
a
like,
real
nope.
fire. It was a tiny little grease fire.
It was.
He didn't even
That's what
get
I mean.
a
And-
look at the fire.
But
He just
was
heard it and
he
ran
was
out.
so ready to let those children die. He didn't go back in once he realized it was a grease fire. He stood outside and waited for the kids.
And he would say to himself, like, "What? I'm not a firefighter. I can't go back
Didn't
into
he
a
get
burning
caught
building."
eating? Right. Yeah. Didn't he get caught eating the eclair earlier in that episode out of the garbage?
Yeah, that was
Is
that
the same
episode.
one?
Oh, was that episode?
Yeah. That's another favorite dark George moment where it's like, I'll just eat trash because it's up to my
Oh, what the hell? I'll just eat some trash.
Yeah, that's Jerry's analysis
Yeah,
of it, which is the opposite of Jerry. Jerry would never go near food that's even hovered above a trash can.
I have a real...
Yeah, a shoe came untied and touched the floor of a men's room. That's the end of that.
Yeah.
I have a real
Same for
dark
belts.
George one that's not like Seinfeld universe dark. It's actually dark. Do you have a George one that you want to go first?
No, go for it.
Because this one like legit happened to Larry David, where he was working on SNL, and within like the first month was like, this is not for me. They're not even like the skits I present. They're not going with. He basically said, "Fuck this."
Didn't he curse him out or something?
So he went home, and his neighbor, who Kramer,
the real Kramer.
If
If you didn't know that, Larry David's real neighbor was this guy Kramer, who Kramer's based on this real neighbor.
So he bounced ideas off him, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Friday afternoon at SNL, Larry basically tells off everybody, cursing at everybody, tells them he quits. He goes home, and Kramer just has this idea, like, because Larry, as he's walking home, is like, fuck, I was making good money. I can't afford to not have a job. What do I do?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's the story that happens to George when he just quits
Right
before he drugs his boss.
Right.
He quits, and then like they're just like, well, just go back. Tell him it was a joke on Monday.
Which is what happened to Larry David. Yeah.
did that, yeah. And but at that moment,
Except
where,
it wasn't George, it was Kramer.
right.
In Larry David's life, the real Kramer is the one who said, "Hey, like, just go back on Monday and pretend you weren't serious. Pretend it was just like a bit, and you were
Which
just
at
like
SNL works a lot better than
at what was that business
It
that
was
George worked
It
at?
was
that?
like real estate or something.
that was
Yeah,
a-
something
that
like
boss
that, yeah.
was a jerk too. That was good. But that moment when George is sitting there, just being like, I really should have thought this through.
Yeah.
Is like such a moment where like I'm sure at that age, plenty of people really have, where you're just like,
Well, he's going through the list of things that he could do, and
Or that he's
it's-
qualified
It's
to
all
do.
absurd.
I like sports.
Yeah.
I could.
I always make
know.
those good comments, don't I? It's like, yeah,
You got good comments.
They usually
Coulda-
give those jobs to people in broadcasting or former players. Well, that's not fair.
That's really not fair.
It's like, well,
But they
That's
make
not really-
Jerry's
yeah.
like Jerry's success almost like unearned. Like he's always the one that like more easily can judge the other characters because he has his shit together. He always has money, and he's also always like, like neat and. He's not disheveled like the other three, right?
Yeah, right.
Or rarely is he, and when he is, it's because something's really fucking with him, like a shower head that doesn't drain the shampoo out of his hair correctly, or it might be like, oh yeah, Julius. Joe, catch people up. Let's take a quick
Julius.
beer break.
okay.
Yeah, I just cracked a new one too. So let's do a quick
we
beer
cracked
roundup.
two. You may have heard.
Yeah,
These are all
we've been tracking.
Treehouse beers that we picked up today.
Like, share, and subscribe.
We waited for fucking 1 hour in the
In the heat, the
humid.
it wasn't even humid.
sticky-
It was humid.
If you've ever
Oh, go
like,
fuck yourselves.
Yeah.
It's not humid. You're in the Northeast.
It was
dude,
humid.
it was pretty
Don't
bad.
talk
We're in
to
the
me about
Berkshires right
humidity.
now.
I was born.
We're in the
into it.
Berkshires.
You merely adopted
Well,
We're in the Pioneer Valley now.
Yeah.
We were before.
Yeah.
Just
You're in the Pioneer
Just to be
Valley
thorough.
studio.
It was humid. Humid. Anyways, we have the doppelganger here.
that's how that scene with Frank
It's a
Costanza
double
sounds.
IPA.
Yeah.
by Treehouse
Humid.
Brewing. What do you got, Johnny?
Oh, and we also had over there Alter Ego.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have Alter Ego.
Sorry to get aggressive, but it's very humid by me. It has not stopped raining for a week, and it's very hot, so I don't want to hear it.
Let's have it.
So I'm drinking a Fonta Flora.
Oh, nice.
One of my favorite breweries in North Carolina. Just one of my favorite breweries. They got a canning machine, I think, recently because I've seen a lot more of their beers in cans. So this is called Dip on the Dough, and it's a dry hopped Kvass style beer brewed with rye bread, caraway seed, and lemon zest. So there's a lot going on in that.
Rye bread?
Yes, sir. Exactly. I thought that would be a good one for the cast. But no, you actually bake it into bread, and then you put the bread into the mash. You're actually brewing with rye bread. It gives it a really weird flavor, but it's only like 2.
That probably smells super weird
alcohol.
when it's brewing, right?
It smells super weird now, but it's delicious. But it's not even 3% alcohol. So it's like one of the lightest beers you're ever going to have. But it's really tasty.
Well, I mean, you have to drink responsibly when you're on the Thunk Tank podcast.
Yeah, I
totally missed a Kramer line opportunity.
I got your back.
Machu Picchu.
See, like that. Okay, so that's a Kramer line where it doesn't have any context other than like Machu Picchu, and you know that Kramer line if you know Seinfeld. I would argue.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Some of those are women's clothes,
That's okay.
sir. That's
Not a problem.
Not a problem.
Oh yeah, that's what he says. Not a problem.
As he's going into the dressing room, eating crackers or chips
yeah.
and salsa.
I've decided to build a roller coaster instead.
Yeah, I'm looking
thank
to
you.
try out.
Joe, did you
what's
give
the
your
name?
George
What's
moment?
the name of his? What's the name of his billionaire character again? Kramer's. Do you remember?
Oh,
This is an easy
Pennypacker.
trivia. That's right. H.G. Pennypacker.
Yeah, all of Kramer's like aliases. Those are pretty funny.
That's such like a little like an 1800s Victorian like era kid would come up with like that would be the name of the bad guy, H.G. Pennypacker.
Yeah.
He's gonna close the local plant. Like
Yeah.
and okay, Joe, what's your dark George?
Jeez, I don't know. I mean, I think in part, like I was saying earlier, the whole it's more so the sequence of him like spiraling down with the whole handicap hiring thing, because he starts where he gets the job, and part of the premise of why he's going along with it is because he gets this private bathroom. And it's not even about the job so much as that he gets this giant private bathroom that he's willing to pretend that he's handicapped. So somebody else who is actually
We take that
handicapped.
as like the premise, and we like now we're seeing what happens. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a crazy premise.
And then when his boss,
Yeah.
and then when his boss realizes that something's wrong, George is like, "Ah, shit, I'm caught." But it turns out his boss thinks that his other legs hurt too, and he goes even deeper into getting the Rascal scooter and starts driving around on that, and he's perfectly okay doing that too. So, and then eventually, like,
But that's another Seinfeld. Just side note: the boss when he should think George is faking his
Yeah.
injury, the boss is too kind and says,
Yeah.
"I know what's going on. Both your legs hurt, and you're just trying to be brave."
Yeah.
you know.
that's
But that's a
dark.
setup for him to get caught eventually.
Yeah.
It's like a temporary good luck,
But he should know,
in the larger bad
But he
luck.
should know at that point that this isn't going to end well. But he's totally comfortable with it.
Yeah.
He says, "Well, you're not going to believe what happened."
And he has moments of really genuine happiness within that, where
Yeah.
he's like, "Look at me, I'm doing
Oh,
this."
he's loving it. That's the
What
dark
does he
part is that
say?
he loves it.
Yeah.
What does he say in that scene when he bumps into? Because he's embraced it and he's using the Rascal outside of work, like in
Yeah.
his daily life, and like he's just deciding I'm gonna be a willful handicapped person
Yeah.
now, and he bumps into another old lady's scooter. She goes, "Hey, you scuffed my ride," and what does he say? He goes, "What is that?
Oh, no,
a V?
he said-
a
He
V?"
goes, what do you got, a 4-volt? I did you a favor.
Yeah, he goes, I did you a favor. Like, that's such a shitty... Like, he's not a handicapped person, but in
elderly
his mind,
woman.
he's like, I know you're elderly, but in their version of the rules, like, but I'm handicapped, so we're just as, like, you're supposed to be nice to me.
Right.
Well,
But
and
So
in,
I can be shitty to
it's
you
an
because I'm
attention
handicapped.
competition.
in that episode,
Yeah.
George says, Jerry, let's face it, I've always
Let
been
me know.
handicapped. I'm just now getting the recognition for it.
Yeah.
Like, he
right.
thinks the universe is against him so much that...
But that's what I mean. If you
It justifies faking the physical injury because he has had so much bad luck. It's
Yeah.
practically like
But
he's
if you
handicapped.
if you take
That's
that
what he
out
says
of
to
the
himself.
context of the show, that is fucked up.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That is so fucked up. And then when he dings the ride and he makes that joke, "Oh yeah, I did you a favor." The old man says, "How about I do you a favor upside the head?" And at that point, he should probably be like, "Wow, you know what? I'm really sorry. Like that was a mean thing to say. Like I didn't mean it. Like whatever."
How about I do you a favor upside
But no, he
the
tries
head?
to right away, and when he realizes he's gonna get caught, he lifts it up and runs because he is able to do it.
And that's where he gets
'Cause
caught.
And then he gets caught, but then he still tries to defend himself because he says to his boss, "Are you a religious man by any chance?" And the guy just goes, "No," and then he leaves. But like that, I like to think about that in terms of out of context of a show,
Right.
and it's just like, oh my god, that's fucked up.
If you took a lot of things out of the Seinfeld universe, they were really fucked up.
Well, it would be insane if you told me that actually happened to you. I would just
Well, like I've
look at
gotten
you
plenty
as
of
if you were
Novocaine at the
nuts.
dentist. I never talk like Kramer did, you know.
Yeah.
But because they tell us he went to the dentist, we have to accept that that's why he's talking like
But
that.
okay, that part's acceptable. Oh, the shoes. They're for the... Okay, that part's acceptable.
Yeah. They all have reasons that at least make consistent sense within Seinfeld universe.
But today would not be cool, that episode.
no. You could
right.
not.
Yeah,
show
it's
that
funny.
on
The things in the
daytime
90s that
television.
were like politically
But the reason-
incorrect to say
yeah,
are
but no.
very different than now.
Yeah, but you couldn't just you can't just straight up make fun of retarded people in the 90s.
But that's
I'm
not
using
what
that
they were
word
doing
because that's what you
anyways,
called
right?
them back then.
Well, no, because, like,
because that's the thing. Is the joke's on Kramer. It's not on
The
a
joke's on
handicapped
how
person.
stupid Kramer
The
actually
joke's
is
on
that
how
he doesn't
dumb
realize what
Kramer
the
is.
guy's thinking. He doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't realize how he's coming across
heading
and
home.
not correcting
heading
anybody.
home. It's like no,
Yeah,
you would
yeah.
say I'm heading home. You
Yeah, like Novocaine or not, you wouldn't be like, you're pretty independent.
Yeah, you wouldn't be like,
Yeah,
well, thank
yeah,
you.
you're not
Like,
doing too
that is
bad
a compliment I
Changes
deserve.
his whole personality because of Novocaine. It's like,
yeah, it's like why.
Well, Kramer.
you're not doing
There you
too
go.
bad yourself.
Yeah. There you go.
That's a really good Novocaine to Kramer impression, by the way.
Well, when you see it
That's
100
really
times,
good.
you get pretty good at it, I guess.
You get it down.
We are well versed, I would say.
Johnny, what time do you have to leave?
I keep going.
Should we hit pause real quick, pee, and then call back, and we'll call it a part 2 episode?
Yeah, let's do that.
Cool.
All right. So
Call you back in 5 minutes.
should we say
Sure.
thank you for joining us?
Yeah, thanks for joining us for part 1. No hang-up game this time because there's no chance we can win. My phone's literally across the room, and
Well, so what you're saying is I won already.
You-
What
I'm
you're
just-
saying is
I'm
go,
just-
good try, John.
Don't even. He's just sitting there. Look at us.
all right. Thank you for listening to part 1. Part 2, we're gonna just keep doing more of this, as far as I understand it. So if you hated this, go fuck yourself.
If you hated
and
this,
don't
you
listen to
didn't-
part
you didn't
2.
make it this far if you hated this.
Oh wait,
for
part
sure.
2 will come out in a week. So like maybe you'll change your mind. Thanks for listening.
Like, share, subscribe.
Oh, so he
Ooh,
gets
boom.
it. I like this.
Peace.
Later.
Luke made the mistake of making a plan before he forgot we do the hang up game because he thought it was a while off still, and yeah, they were really far from the phone. They had no chance, so he's just trying some bullshit with, so we just won't do it this time. No, we do it every time, and you lost this time. You were not set up to win. So I hope you liked the Seinfeld part 1. It was pretty good. It's good to have Eric on. He's a real funny guy. We should have him on more, even if we do a non-Seinfeld one. Oh, man. Yeah, if there's any other shows you guys would like us to cover, I'm sure they just have to be as funny and memorable and famous as Seinfeld was. So, yeah, lots to work with there. All righty. Come back and check us out again. Thanks for think tanking. Come out and check out the part 2 we will do of this one. Which will probably be a little less Seinfeld centric and maybe a little more just open and thunky because we're getting there. All right. Bye, friends.
All right, here we are, Joe.
Welcome to Thunk Tank Podcast, brought to you by
Seinfeld.
Listen Now, Listen Here, Have a Beer.
No.
I'm trying to think of rhyming words.
All right, so this episode we
We did Seinfeld analysis.
and as we were writing this intro,
We didn't write anything. Luke's brother was there.